I have said this a lot during prediction season, and you know what? I'll go ahead and say it again. The Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets are a team that continues to get more and more and more competitive. And now, 2024, with a lot of returning offensive pieces, some good returning talent defensively, and another year under Brent Key, can this be the year that Georgia Tech is an ACC sleeper? Well, you're about to find out what I think here in this video. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. I want to welcome you to my channel and welcome you back to prediction season, because it's where I predict all 134 FBS level college football teams, which means I'm doing your favorite team this summer. So why don't you go ahead and hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when that video gets uploaded. And I want to thank you so much for watching this video, because it does help support my channel in more ways than you can even imagine. And if you'd like to continue to support what I do here on YouTube, hey, interact with the channel any way you can. Like, comment, share, watch my other videos. Anything you do to interact with the channel helps us support it, and I really appreciate everything that you guys do for this channel. Let's dive on into talking about Georgia Tech in 2024, but you got to know how we're going to do it first. We're going to take a deep dive into the team's offense, into the defense, and at the end of the day, we'll go through the Yellow Jacket football schedule and give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. A couple more things before we do start, because right over here are going to be the team's stats they put up either offensively or defensively last season. And for your viewing pleasure, dear viewer, right below the team's logo, I have put the team's coaching staff. So I will waste no more time. Let's go ahead and talk about this Georgia Tech offense in 2024. So, talking about this quarterback room, Zach Gibson is going to be gone. He leaves through the portal, but didn't see playing time last season. So you do get your primary starter in Haynes King coming back to this room. 2,842 yards, 27 touchdowns on 61.6 completion percentage last season. There is one stat that I did not mention because it's the problem area for Haynes King. It's his interception numbers. He threw 16 picks last year, which off the top of my head probably is one of the higher numbers, if not the highest number, in terms of most interceptions thrown by a quarterback last season. That has to get better. Again, this rushing offense was really good last year, and it will be again because Haynes King, very, very good with his legs. 737 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 120 carries. Sack yardage is included in that, I do believe, and got sacked 15 times last year, so he's a very capable runner. Zach Pyron is another good dual-threat quarterback who maybe we'll see a bigger role in 2024. Who knows what happens with Zach Pyron? Right now is the primary backup to Haynes King, but again, he could see some solid playing time in 2024. As is my opinion, I would be able to use him as like a dual threat quarterback, kind of a run option style player. But again, he is that primary backup to Haynes King, who is another pretty good dual threat quarterback. As long as he can cut back on the interception numbers, this is an offense that has a lot of talent on it, as you're about to find out right now. Dante Smith, a running back, is gone due to graduation. 504 yards, 4 touchdowns, second leading rushers among running backs last season. What does that mean? That's right, ladies and gentlemen, your lead rusher does come back. Jamal Haynes was a 1,000-yard rusher last season, 1,059 yards and 7 touchdowns on 174 carries. That equals the 6.1 yards per carry that Haynes King had last season. Part of the reason that this rushing attack was really good last year was not only that you had a 1,000-yard rusher in Jamal Haynes, but again, back to talking about Haynes King, very capable runner, trying to scramble out of the pocket, run some quarterback run plays as well. You do have some depth coming back in that running back room as well, as Trey Cooley and Evan Dickens both will be coming back. Cooley will see some increased playing time. He had 274 yards last season. He'll get more carries with Smith gone, and Dickens will kind of move into that 3 role. Wide receiver Dominic Blaylock is gone. He has taken his talents to the professional side in the NFL. He had 21 catches for 334 yards and 2 touchdowns a season ago for this team. But a lot of your notable wide receiver pieces from last season do come back, including your top 2 targets. That was Eric Singleton Jr. and Malik Rutherford. Singleton had 714 yards, 6 touchdowns, while Rutherford had 502 yards and 4 touchdowns. Both of them pretty similar receptions. In fact, I think Singleton just had 2 more catches than Rutherford last season. Christian Leary is back, was the 4th leading receiver from last year. That should see an increased role there, as well as that number 3 with Dominic Blaylock gone. Chase Lane and Abdul Jenna will be coming back to this team. Hopefully I said that last name right. If not, I apologize. You do lose a couple tight ends to the NFL and Dylan Leonard and Luke Benson. So to continue talking about this Pats catching room, Brett Seether does come back, had 101 yards and 4 touchdowns last year. Was actually the leading touchdown the leading touchdown catcher among tight ends last season, while Ryland Goad. I switched that O and E around, so give me 1 second. Again, I hopefully am saying that last name right, but he's a transfer from Mississippi State, and Jackson Hawes is a transfer coming over from Yale. And you do lose Connor Scaglione due to graduation, and Ja'Kai Leftwich through the portal on the offensive line. So your offensive line room looks like this: Ethan McKinney, Joe Fusile, again, hopefully I'm saying that last name right, Jordan Williams, and Weston Franklin all come back. You do get Keelan Rutledge coming over through the portal, who, to my knowledge, is a pretty solid player coming over from Middle Tennessee. He could definitely end up being a first-day starter on the offensive line, while you do get some freshmen coming in as well. Tana Alo Tupuola, again, hopefully I'm saying that last name right. I probably butchered it, and I apologize, while Harrison Moore comes into the program as a freshman as well. So let's talk about this offense for Georgia Tech in 2024. Quarterback room. As long as Haynes King can cut down on the interception numbers, he's a prime candidate to get 3,000 yards. You saw last year he probably will have at least 500 rushing yards from his quarterback spot as well. The offensive line, yes, they lost some solid pieces, but should be fairly good again in 2024. This is a rushing attack that's going to be really good, especially returning Haynes and Cooley. We know that King can run, and even if King gets hurt, while Zach Pyron may not be as good of a passer, he's still a very, very capable runner there as well. Got some good pieces coming back at wide receiver. You'll miss Leonard and Benson in that tight end room, but see, there's a very capable tight end. Overall, this offense, I think, should see an uptick in that passing production in 2024 if Haynes King especially can cut back on the interception numbers, while the rushing offense is still going to be right back where it was last year for the Yellow Jackets in 2024. This is going to be a tricky offense to defend for opponents this upcoming season. Let's talk about the defense, though, for Georgia Tech, because, well, it is the problem area. For as good as this team is rushing the football offensively, they really are not that great in defending the run defensively. They allow over 220 rushing yards per game, at least they did last season. That's got to look to improve here in 2024, especially if Georgia Tech wants to try to take that next step, or at least take that step up the ladder in the ACC standings. And it does lose a lot of defensive linemen through the transfer portal from last season. Kyle Kennard, Eddie Kelly, Daquan Dowse, and Noah Collins, all of those guys are gone. Kennard led the team in sacks last year, had 6 of them. Eddie Kelly had half a sack last season. Dowse had 2 of them. Collins, pretty solid player in his own right there as well. 9 tackles a sack, was used more for depth, but a notable loss to me. It's a defensive line that loses a lot of talent. So who does come back? Well, Zeke Biggers does come back, 39 tackles and 1 sack from last season. Mackie Scott, again, hopefully I'm saying that first name right. He does come back. Kevin Harris, Horace Walker, and Joshua Robinson are all pieces that come back to the defensive line, but they did get some good transfers coming in here as well. Romello Height is a transfer coming over from USC. You get Thomas Gore coming over from Miami, as well as a couple other Power 5 transfers coming over, one from Penn State, one from Florida State, to add to this defensive line room as well. You did lose one of your more talented defensive players from a season ago, as Paula Mawala is gone to the NFL, 63 tackles and 3 sacks a season ago, while Braylon Oliver and Andre White have both run out of eligibility. They have since graduated. Oliver, 29 tackles last season, White 24 of them, tack on 2.5 sacks for him as well. So when you talk about this linebacker room, well, they definitely had to dive on into the portal. Kyle Efford and Trainelius Tatum, again, hopefully I'm saying that first name right, they both are coming back, while EJ Lightsey and Jackson Hamilton are transfers coming in here to this program. Lightsey coming over from the Tech's biggest rival in the Georgia Bulldogs, and Jackson Hamilton is a Louisville transfer that comes over there as well. When you talk about this defensive back room, which we're going to right now, so let's talk about it. Miles Sims is gone. He has run out of eligibility. 37 tackles, 5 pass defended, and an interception last season. No more playing football for him, at least at the collegiate level. KJ Wallace, Keenan Jackson, and Keenan Johnson, my apologies, and Kenyatta Watson II. All 3 of them are going to be gone through the transfer portal. The biggest loss there is KJ Wallace, 42 tackles, 7 passes defended, which was second on the Yellow Jacket team last year. You also do lose some pieces out of the safety room as well, as Jalen King, a very notable loss for this defense, as he had 67 tackles. That was tied for 3rd on the team last season. 9 passes defended, which led the team. 4 interceptions, which led the team last season as well. So you're losing a very talented member of the secondary in Jalen King. You also are losing Sarad Bryant through the transfer portal as well. More of a depth piece than anything. Yes, only 7 tackles last year, but still a notable loss. And again, filling in for Jalen King is the big challenge that the Yellow Jackets will have to face defensively here in 2024. But let's talk about what they do have in the defensive back room. You do get Amari Harvey and Rodney Shelley both coming back in the cornerback room, as well as some transfers coming into this program. You do get Warren Burrell, who is coming over from Tennessee. You also are going to be getting Saeed Gibbs, who is coming over from Rhode Island. There are some safety transfers coming in as well. The most notable one is Jaden Davis. He comes over from Cincinnati. I believe 1 or 2 more guys coming through the portal there as well. But let's talk about now what you return in the safety room, because the returners are a little bit more notable than getting Jaden Davis from Cincinnati over in the portal. Clayton Powell-Lee is back to highlight the safety room, 70 tackles for him, second on the team last season. LaMiles Brooks is back, Omar Daniels, and Tate Seymour, all of which come back to this team as well. By the way, I forgot to mention that Kyle Efford in that linebacker room was the leading tackler for the team last season. And kickers are people too, so let's show them some love. Gavin Stewart, a kicker from last year, is gone through the portal. Was 8 for 8 on extra points, but missed all 3 of his field goal attempts last year. So David Shanahan back to do the punting duties, and Aiden Burr back to do the kicking duties for Georgia Tech in 2024. You take a look at this defense, and absolutely the defensive front has to take a step in the right direction. Otherwise, this is just not going to be as successful of a year as Georgia Tech fans want it to be. And as the Georgia Tech players and this coaching staff want it to be as well. The rush defense has to take a step in the right direction. They have a lot to replace in that secondary. I have a feeling this is the defense that is going to see some improvement in 2024, at very least due to the eye test. I think there's going to look like a more aggressive and better defense. But again, this is the defense that only had 21 sacks last year, did force 25 turnovers, so keep that up, improve that rush defense. You're looking at a very scary team in 2024, which leads me into talking about their schedule. Any game at home is going to be underlined, while any game on the road is in italics or that slanted text. And of course, there is a neutral site game on here that is listed accordingly. Any game in green is going to be a game that I think the Yellow Jackets will win easily. Any game in yellow will be a close competitive game, but I still see Georgia Tech being able to win. And red, of course, is a loss. They start out the season with a game against the Florida State Seminoles, a team that I think is going to be one of the better teams in college football this season, and definitely one of, if not the best team in the ACC this year. This is the Dublin, Ireland game in week 0, and much like Georgia Tech was able to put up a fight against the Louisville team that ended up being pretty good at the end of the season last year, I think they're going to be able to do the same thing here against Florida State. Obviously, Florida State lost Jordan Travis. They lost a ton of pieces on defense. Keon Coleman is gone, but they were able to supplement pretty well through the transfer portal. DJU is coming in. They still have some good defensive pieces, and Mike Norvell's squad is ready to contend in the ACC yet again. So I have this one being a loss for Georgia Tech in week 0, but I think they're going to be able to win some games here coming up here, including this non-conference game against Georgia State. So an in-state team out of the Sun Belt. The Panthers always seem to be sneaky, so you got to watch out for them, but Georgia Tech, especially with a lot of their offensive playmakers they have, will be able to get through this Georgia State defense. I also have this team going on the road and beating the Syracuse Orange in week 2, so maybe a little bit of an upset here, as you probably will end up seeing Syracuse the favorite in this game. They got Kyle McCord. They got some really good pieces at running back coming back. Some pretty good defensive pieces back to that team as well. But I think it'll take a little bit of time, especially for a new head coach in Fran Brown, to really start to get this train rolling. Georgia Tech is a sneaky team that, look, if everything fits together for 60 minutes, maybe even 45 minutes on the defensive end, they're going to be able to come out on top, especially with all the offensive talent that they do have. I think this is one of those scenarios. Georgia Tech, I think, matches up well with Syracuse, and as long as that defense can take steps in the right direction, I think the secondary will be able to slow down Kyle McCord. The rush defense will be good, and they will be able to beat the Syracuse Orange in week 2. Tricky game, though, hard one to predict, but I do see them winning that one, and I see them beating VMI there as an FCS level team. However, that win streak ends at 3 because the Louisville Cardinals are going to be really, really good again in 2024. Louisville is just a team that I really, really like entering the season. And yes, there's no Jack Plummer. Yes, there's no Jawar Jordan. Yes, there's no Jamari Thrash. But this is the team that is loaded up on transfers through the portal, both offensively and defensively. And Jeff Brom, I really, really like as a head coach. So this is a Louisville team that's going to be excellent again in 2024. And I have them beating Georgia Tech at home here to hand the Yellow Jackets their second loss of the season. But I do think they come home, does Georgia Tech, and they are going to be able to beat the Duke Blue Devils. Now, Duke is going to be a sneaky team this year, and much like Georgia Tech, I've said it a lot, watch out for Duke this season. Yes, Riley Leonard is gone. Yes, Jordan Waters is gone, but Jaquez Moore still there. You get Malik Murphy, who is a transfer coming over from Texas to play quarterback, and I think he will be a really good fit in with this Duke program. Yes, you did lose Mike Elko, but the new head coach coming in, I like. And it's a Duke team that does have some pretty solid defensive pieces as well. But both these teams are going to be sneaky. I think Georgia Tech, especially at home, even though they don't have a great home field advantage, a little bit more equipped here as they have more returning pieces. So I got them beating the Duke Blue Devils there, as I have them pulling off yet another, what I think is going to prove to be a fairly impressive road win against the North Carolina Tar Heels. Yes, Drake May is gone. Yes, there are some wide receiver pieces, including Devontae Walker, that are gone. Yes, there are some defensive pieces that leave that you're going to have to fill in for, most notably, in my opinion, at least that I can remember off the top of my head, Miles Murphy on that defensive line. However, when you talk about North Carolina, Omarion Hampton is back. You do get Max Johnson coming over from Texas A&M to play quarterback. He'll be a solid player for them. And North Carolina is going to be a really solid team. Again, I just think Georgia Tech is sneaky this year. I think they're going to be able to pull off this win, go on the road. I really like this rushing attack, which I think pairs up well for a North Carolina defense that has a lot of question marks entering this season. Lost a lot of talent on that defensive front, and I think the Yellow Jackets rushing attack will be able to get it done on the road. So look at that. They're already one win away from a bowl game. They're 5-2. But this stretch here, this 5-game stretch is brutal for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. You have to win at least one of these games in order to clinch your spot in a bowl game. Well, I don't think it's against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I think Marcus Freeman's squad is going to be really, really good in 2024. They'll absolutely push and contend for a college football playoff spot this upcoming season, as Notre Dame, look, I just have being a very, very good team here in 2024. Again, I just talked about how Duke lost Riley Leonard. Guess who Notre Dame gained? Riley Leonard. Some very talented transfers do leave, but they have some good pieces coming in. Defensively, Benjamin Morrison is back. He'll be one of the best corners in the game in 2024. And Notre Dame, especially defensively, stacks up really, really well. Yes, there are some pieces to replace, but the schedule very manageable. Georgia Tech will be sneaky and be competitive, but I like Notre Dame here to win this game, and I really like Virginia Tech this season. They end up getting their quarterback back, whose name, Kyron Drones. There you go. He is coming back here to this team with a ton of other weapons, including Bashal Tootin in the running back room. Some good pieces at wide receiver, and that Hokie defense is very, very talented. Along with this one being played in Blacksburg, Virginia Tech is going to have their way with the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, and Virginia Tech will walk away in the Battle of the Techs in the ACC. All right, now you get a bye week to prepare. So after those two brutal games, you get a bye week to sort of reflect and take a minute to prepare yourself for a game against the Miami Hurricanes. Now, it is no doubt that Miami is going to be a very talented team here in 2024. Miami is definitely going to be a team to watch out for because Cameron Ward is there, very talented transfer over from Washington State. Damian Martinez there at running back. By the way, Cam Ward at quarterback, if you didn't know. Damian Martinez is there, very talented running back at Oregon State. Xavier Restrepo comes back. The team loaded up on defensive talent. Already some good pieces coming back, but a lot of defensive transfers coming in. Cormani McClain is there with this program now. The talent at Miami is through the roof. However, you can't argue that in years past, Mario Cristobal has blown a game for whatever team he is coaching in pretty much every year he has coached. Now, you can argue it won't happen. You can't argue it hasn't happened. We all know that it was the Georgia Tech game last season, and I'm not predicting that this is the game that Mario Cristobal is going to blow, because that's just something that you don't predict, ever. However, that being said, I like this matchup for the Yellow Jacket team. I think they're going to be able to win this game. I really, really do. Even though Georgia Tech does not have a great home field advantage, I think that with King and this running back room and the defense as well should be able to hold up its own, but the offense is what helps them win this game. They clinch bowl eligibility before I think they lose their last 2 games. I think they lose to NC State because, again, they have some really talented players coming in there. Including Grayson McCall, the former Coastal Carolina quarterback. Jordan Waters is there now. Really good defensive team. And then they're just not beating Georgia at the end of the year at all. That's a game that's been moved to Friday as well. So I got 6-6 for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. When you take a step back and look at the schedule, it is a tough one. The floor is really low, but I think the ceiling is higher than what most people may think. I like the talent on this Georgia Tech team. If the offensive line can be able to piece together well, the defense can figure things out, and Haynes can cut back on the interception numbers, this will be another good team in 2024. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. We'll move on to talking about the BYU Cougars up next. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.